Hi, my name is Kokernot. Welcome to my channel. In the last several videos, I've been focusing on various aspects of the teachings of Jesus through A Course in Miracles. I've talked about things like judgment, whether there are individuals or groups who could be considered the chosen ones on some basis other than that they have chosen correctly. I've talked about God not intervening in our lives and about the relativity of time, and about how acim is really a treatise on psychology. Today, I just want to boil it down to the essential question that is at the heart of A Course in Miracles, and that would be the choice between love and fear. I'll insert references to concepts that I've covered in recent videos, so you might want to review some of those in the playlist called Aspects of ACIM, so as to appreciate how all of these various threads are woven together. Try not to think about love and fear as verbs while you listen to today's video. Think about them as states of mind, as the only two emotions, or even better, as filters that you put over the lens of a camera. All this for the sake of trying to make a simple equation that has been complicated by the ego over time, a simple equation once again. There's a simple choice here at the center of it, because we're really focusing here on perception and the choice to see the world through a filter of love or through a filter of fear. Here's a passage from A Course in Miracles that spells it out most succinctly. Quote, "Fear and love are the only emotions of which you are capable. One is false, for it was made out of denial, and denial depends on the real belief in what is denied for its own existence. By interpreting fear correctly as a positive affirmation of the underlying belief it masks, you are undermining its perceived usefulness by rendering it useless. Defenses which do not work at all are automatically discarded. If you raise what fear conceals to clear-cut, unequivocal predominance, fear becomes meaningless. You have denied its power to conceal love, which was its only purpose. The mask which you have drawn across the face of love has disappeared." End quote. Wow. Clearly in this passage, Jesus is asserting that love is true and fear is false, and that furthermore, fear is the denial of love. He's also laying out a logical argument that for something to be denied, it must be seen as real in the first place. So if love can be denied, its existence is affirmed in the denial of it. That's the logic of heaven. Here's a passage from the workbook that makes it very clear. Quote, "This strange belief would limit happiness by redefining love as limited and introducing opposition in what has no limit and no opposite. Fear is associated now with love, and its results become the heritage of minds which think what they have made is real. These images, with no reality and truth, bear witness to the fear of God. Forgetting being love, he must be joy." End quote. If we accept that the premise of space and time being fundamental has in no way been proven, and that in fact there is a lot more evidence, even in the realm of science, to support the conclusion that the world we see is not a world happening around us independent of our conscious perceptions. It is a construction of our belief system. The evidence pointing to the idea that the world we see is happening independently of our minds is based entirely on our observations, the evidence we collect with our eyes and ears. But if that's a construction of our minds, then the world we see is a creation of our minds. And if that truly is the case, as evidence suggests, then the question of which filter we put over our perception becomes an extremely significant choice. If we believe in fear, we will see a fearful world. If we believe wholeheartedly that only love exists, then love is what we'll see. It's really that simple. What's not simple is getting over this belief that the world is not a construction of our minds at all. And that's why I spend so much time on this channel pointing at the evidence from neuroscience and from physics and other places that suggests that the latter is true. The very idea that the world is happening independently of our minds has no actual evidence to support it. It's just been the assumption that we've been clinging to for so long that we've forgotten it's only an assumption. We've had other assumptions corrected before, such as the assumption that the earth is flat, and then the assumption that the earth lies at the center of everything. We've found out that we were wrong before, and because the truth was indeed more expansive than what we had formerly believed, like now we could sail around the world, we've turned out to be very glad that we were wrong. And this is another such case. We will be entirely glad once we realize that fear is nothing more than a false filter that we can choose against. So let's talk about the atonement, or more precisely, the decision to accept the atonement, which Jesus tells us is our only responsibility as teachers of God. Remember that I'd broken down the word atonement into at-one-ment. We can get from this reframing of the word that accepting the at-one-ment is the same as accepting that love or connection is the only truth about us. If our beliefs are still unstable, we'll sometimes see the world through the filter of love, and we'll sometimes see it through the filter of fear. And that is precisely what the workbook is for, to correct that and to retrain the mind to believe only in love, so that we will see only the truth of the world, instead of the hallucinations that fear has introduced to cover up the truth. Must we do the workbook? What if I can't get past all the God talk? Is there still a way for those of us who don't want to talk about God to find salvation or true joy and peace? Yeah, of course there is. God, having no ego, is not concerned in the least about whether or not you believe in him or worship him. God, being the Father of us all, is far more concerned with us seeing the innocence in one another, in our brothers and sisters. And God knows that will be a whole lot easier if we assume our own innocence. So I created the thought vigilance practice as an alternative healing device for those who don't want to get all up in God's mind. Both the workbook and thought vigilance, then, serve the same purpose. Once an individual has decided that they want to believe that only love exists, these two alternatives exist as simple procedures for making their beliefs more stable. If you keep entertaining fearful thoughts, or thoughts that come from other emotions that can be distilled down to fear, like grievances, judgment thoughts, and guilt and blame thoughts, for instance, then your belief in fear's existence will be sustained. But as we throw those thoughts aside, denying them our attention, we do eventually starve that false belief until it vanishes. Poof. This is inevitable because love is the only truth there is. This world of separation cannot end in any other way than the full and complete acceptance of love as truth. This process is accomplished through the transfer of our trust from fear to love. Here's a passage from the Manual for Teachers that makes it pretty clear. Quote, "Having offered love, only love can be received. It is in this that the teacher of God must trust. This is what is really meant by the statement that the one responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the atonement for himself. The teacher of God is a miracle worker because he gives the gifts he has received, yet he must first accept them. He need do no more, nor is there more that he could do." End quote. Think of it as two canoes. One is a love canoe and the other is a fear canoe. By doing the workbook or some other discipline practice aimed at changing your mind, like thought vigilance, you are lifting your other foot out of the fear canoe gradually but continually, and that is all that you need to. The outcome is certain. The time it takes to transfer your trust from love to fear is not significant, simply because time exists only within the dream. I'll leave you today with a prayer from today's workbook lesson, lesson 318. Let me today, my Father, take the role you offer me in your request that I accept atonement for myself. For thus does what is thereby reconciled in me become as surely reconciled to you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again later. Bye.